Good evening. You are tuning in to AWANI Tonight with me, Farhana Sheikh. Percentage of breakthrough COVID-19 deaths among the fully vaccinated is less than 0.01%, says Khairi. And where do we start when it comes to reforms in police? That's coming up. Malaysia and Singapore are discussing the possibility of reopening borders soon. Foreign Minister Datuk Saifuddin Abdullah said the matter has been brought to the attention of Datuk Sri Syamuddin Hussein, who heads the committee to manage the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. He added the health ministers of both countries had been in conversation to discuss the matter. Saifuddin said that the reopening of borders between Malaysia and Singapore would pave the way for the country to open up air travel with other countries such as Thailand. He was responding to question by Muar MP Syed Saddiq in Dewan Rakyat today, who raised the plight of Malaysians who have not seen their families since borders closed due to the pandemic. Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin said he had abandoned the term herd immunity when referring to the country's target COVID-19 vaccination. He said despite achieving the 80% immunization target, the spread of the Delta variant has proven to be difficult to beat. And the focus now should be to ensure that the vaccination coverage is as wide as possible. On interstate travel, Khairi also said that they are not the main contributor to rising COVID cases.
Apabila kita mencapai 90% dewasa, kurang lebih liputan untuk seluruh penduduk adalah lebih daripada 60%. Then we will also start catching up on the peak remaja. Tetapi kita juga telah buat keputusan bahawa merentas negeri itu on its own tidak meningkatkan kes. Cuma congregation yang berlaku itu yang menyebabkan kes-kes penularan. Jadi we will have to look at the public health measures. Lifting the borders alone is not the issue so much. Mobility is not the issue so much.
Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said yesterday that the interstate travel restriction will be lifted once 90% of adults in Malaysia are vaccinated. The COVID-19 vaccine is not 100% foolproof, but the percentage of breakthrough deaths among the fully vaccinated is less than 0.01% out of 14 million individuals, proving that the vaccines are effective, says Khairi. According to him, the breakthrough death rate among the fully vaccinated was the same, irrespective of whether it was the Sinovac, Pfizer or AstraZeneca vaccines. He added that the percentage of COVID patients admission to ICUs after being fully vaccinated was 0.007% and that cases of reinfection were also low. The information was based on a recent study carried out by the National Institute of Health Malaysia on 14 million individuals who had been fully vaccinated. He said the full findings would be announced soon. The government is ready to deliberate on the issue whereby Malaysian mothers are not allowed to pass their citizenship to children born overseas. According to Foreign Minister Datuk Sri Saifuddin Abdullah, Attorney General Tan Sri Idris Harun will be invited to the Cabinet meeting tomorrow to give advice on how to solve the problem in the best way. He told reporters after receiving a petition from NGO Family Frontiers Malaysia outside Parliament today, urging for the government to withdraw its appeal on the High Court's decision that affirmed equal citizenship right for Malaysian women's children born overseas. Saifuddin noted that it is a very serious issue as it involves discrimination and human rights. There is currently no provision in the Federal Constitution allowing these children to be granted citizenship. On Wednesday, Home Minister Datuk Sri Hamzah Zainuddin said the government would refer the matter to the Conference of Rulers with the intention of implementing constitutional amendments. This is because under the Constitution, citizenship matters involve the consent of the Conference of Rulers. Malaysia saw an 83.4% decrease in inbound tourist arrivals to the country in 2020 compared to the previous year. Department of Statistics Malaysia's chief statistician, Datuk Sri Dr. Muhammad Uzair Mahidin, said the fall was the worst ever recorded in the country's tourism history. He said that travel agencies and accommodation services were the biggest losers in terms of growth performance, recording negative 66.7% and negative 54.6% growth. On internal tourism consumption, a total of 52.4 billion ringgit was generated in 2020 as compared to 182.1 billion in 2019. Dr. Uzair said that domestic tourism plays a vital role in Malaysia's tourism by contributing 73.8% to the internal tourism consumption. We'll be back after a short break.
Ingin jual dan beli kereta dengan mudah secara atas talian? Tak perlu risau tentang dokumen atau ke bank. Custom akan menguruskan dan boleh menghantar di mana jua anda berada. Senang je, layari custom.my. Custom je lah.
Di sebalik setiap wira, berdirinya anak bangsa berjiwa pewira. Apabila anak bangsa bersatu, maka lahirlah negara maju. Semoga Ibu Pertiwi akan terus menerajui.
Bahmun semua padian, lihatlah Awani Borneo jam 7 malam setiap hari, banyak berita-berita cerita kita ni hanya di Astro Awani.
Welcome back. Incidences of corruption and police abuse have renewed calls for reforms in law enforcement. But where do we start? Lawyer Shahrizan Johan says it is time to relook the problem from within and outside the force, from police wages to political will.
When we talk about police reforms, what usually comes to mind is, of course, the IPCMC and things like making sure the police respect human rights, eradicating corruption in the force, and so on. However, I think when we talk about reforms, we actually need to go beyond just these matters. We need to look at whether members of the force are paid wages which commensurate with the work that they're doing. We need to look at whether the equipments that they use, the tools that they have are up to date, are effective. We also need to look at things like the work and housing premises of members of the force. So my view is that we need to acknowledge, first and foremost, that there is a need to look at all these elements in a holistic manner and not by piecemeal basis.
He said the Royal Commission of Inquiry introduced in 2003, chaired by former Chief Justice Muhammad Zainuddin Abdullah, should serve as a basis for police reforms in the country.
The RCI report at that particular point in time also came up with many recommendations and timelines for the implementation of those recommendations. So have a task force, a committee to review again the findings, and this process must involve all stakeholders. If you really have the political will to do this, you don't need to start from zero. It's already there. There is a basis already. We just need to update it. And if we are really serious, I think it can be embarked upon as soon as possible, and perhaps we are looking at comprehensive review within 6 months to a year, and after that it's just a matter of implementation.
Shahrizan said that now is the time to institute reforms as there is a public clamor for change and to push for more accountability among law enforcers.
It comes down to it when there is a push from quarters for something to be done. I think whether they like it or not, policymakers, politicians will want to at least address it. Whether they get it done or not, I mean, that is a whole different question. But to get it started, to get the fire, the spark to start the fire, I think it must come from the people. And if we don't do it now, where we have this opportunity, we're going to see a situation where, another 16, 20 years down the road, we are still going to be talking about police reforms.
Japan plans to donate 60 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines to needy countries. doubling the target from the previous pledge of 30 million doses. Of the first 30 million, Japan has already provided about 23 million doses, mostly to ASEAN countries, including Taiwan, Vietnam, Indonesia and Malaysia. Japan is giving away most of its domestically produced supply of the vaccine developed by AstraZeneca. Japan initially lagged behind other industrialized nations in its vaccination rollout, but now 55% of its population are fully vaccinated, roughly on par with the United States. Responding to criticism that wealthy nations are stockpiling vaccines, US President Joe Biden has also announced that it will put another 500 million Pfizer vaccines to share to the world. This announcement will bring US's total vaccine sharing commitment to over 1 billion doses through next year. The US so far has already donated 160 million doses to over 100 countries. Thailand is planning to cut its mandatory quarantine period for vaccinated foreign tourists to 7 days from 2 weeks. The kingdom is seeking to boost its vital tourism sector as it faces delay in the reopening of the wider economy due to a low vaccination rate. Under the proposal, the quarantine would be 7 days for the visitors who had been fully vaccinated. Those without vaccination proof would be isolated for 10 days. Currently, only Phuket and Koh Samui waive quarantine for vaccinated tourists as part of a pilot scheme. Authorities this week say Thailand will delay plans to reopen cities to tourists until November due to the country's low inoculation rate. Less than a quarter of the estimated 72 million people living in Thailand have been fully vaccinated. The World Food Programme has warned of widespread hunger in Afghanistan. In a report, it said that just about 5% of Afghan families have enough to eat each day. The abrupt loss of income and spiraling inflation have also pushed many middle-class households into poverty. The UN agency said that 9 out of 10 Afghans do not have enough to eat. On top of political turbulence, Afghanistan is also going through a drought, exacerbating the food crisis. The economy is in a free fall following the rapid withdrawal of foreign aid after the country was taken over by the Taliban last month. At the G20 summit, China has called for economic sanctions on Afghanistan to be lifted and the Taliban to be given access to billions of dollars in frozen funds, highlighting a deepening rift between Beijing and the West over the future of the country. Cristiano Ronaldo has overtaken Lionel Messi as the world's highest-earning footballer. According to Forbes, the Manchester United forward is set to make $125 million before taxes in the 2021 to 2022 season, compared to Messi, who is expected to earn $110 million. 36-year-old Ronaldo rejoined United from Juventus in August after 12 years away, while Messi left Barcelona to join Paris Saint-Germain. Forbes said Ronaldo is set to earn $70 million in salary and bonuses at United, while another $55 million will come from endorsement and partnerships with brands including Nike, Herbalife and his CR7 brand. Messi, who topped last year's list, will be paid a salary of $75 million with an additional $35 million from endorsements. Meanwhile, PSG's Neymar is third on the list with total earnings of $95 million. Another PSG player, Kylian Mbappe, is fourth on the Forbes list with earnings of $43 million, while Liverpool forward Mohamed Salah is fifth at $41 million. Following news, the government will now be paying for MySejahtera. Tonight on Consider This, we take a closer look at the app used almost exclusively for our COVID-19 management. That's coming up right after AWANI Tonight. That is all we have for you on AWANI Tonight. Get the latest news update on COVID-19 and COVID-19 vaccines from astroawani.com and the Astro AWANI app. I'm Farhana Sheikh. We'll see you again